Hello crafty friends, my name's Alicia, but you can call me Crafty Al. And today I'm going to be putting together my very first set of cards using the March 2026 SheetLoad of Cards printable. I hope you'll stick around to see how they're made and get a few tips along the way. Welcome, or perhaps welcome back to my channel. I'm so glad that you're here today. Yesterday, I debuted the brand new SheetLoad of Cards for March 2026. If you have not yet downloaded the printable, which is free to all subscribers, make sure to check out that debut video, which is linked in the description box below. Today, I'm going to be sharing lots of tips on how to put your cards together, including some alternative ideas. Also, my creative team is joining me today in sharing their first sets. To see what everyone has made, you're going to want to use this month's playlist for your one-stop shop for all of their videos. You can find that link in the description box below, and I'll also have it as an end card at the end of this video. Now, if you'd rather hop along by channel, there is also a channel link list down there. As I get into the process, I will tell you about all the products and tools that I'm using. But as always, if you ever come up with any questions, feel free to leave those down in that comment section below, and I'll get back to you just as soon as I can. Let's get crafty! I'm going to get started today by showing you how to cut the two pieces of pattern paper. This month there are some scraps left over, so I suggest maybe using those to decorate the inside of your cards. The first pieces I'm going to cut are for pattern paper piece B, and that's just because it's easier to cut those 1-inch tall strips now. If your pattern paper has a direction, make sure to keep that in mind before you make these first cuts, and you're going to want to cut 4 strips off the bottom that are 1 inch tall. Now all of these dimensions do add up to exactly 12 inches, so make sure not to do what I call generous cuts. Cut them right at a 1 inch or maybe even a hair under. Once those 4 strips are cut, you'll want to rotate your pattern paper back so it's facing the correct way. And now to make the most out of the scraps, I'm going to cut 2 columns from this that are 5 1/4 inches wide. After you do that, then you have that good chunk left over at the end, and later I'll show you how I use that to decorate the inside of my cards. Now you'll want to cut those 2 columns into 2 pieces each that are 4 inches tall. Now I know I'm throwing a lot of dimensions out there, but keep in mind you don't need to write these down or remember them. Check out yesterday's video so you can download your free printable. To finish cutting down pattern paper piece B, you'll bring your strips of pattern paper back in, and these each get cut to 4.875 inches wide, and that is going to be 4 7/8 inches. On your trimmer, it will be the mark that is halfway between 4 3/4 and 5 inches. You'll cut each of these into 2 strips, and there are some extras left over that again you can utilize either on the front of the card in some way or on the inside as well. The second piece of pattern paper I'm using for today's cards is the same as the first, but I will be using side B on the cards. While I cut this piece in the same way as the first, I wanted to take a minute to recognize some special channel members. In the month of February, some of them earned their 1-year membership badge. So congratulations and thank you to the members whose names are scrolling up on screen now. Thank you all so very much for your continued support. If you're not yet a channel member and you would like to find out more about the perks of being one, you can click on the join button below this video or check out the link in the description box below. Membership starts as low as $1.99 a month, and that will get you access to probably the most favorite perk, and that is the visual archive. It is a one-stop shop with thumbnails and direct links to all SheetLoad of Cards editions. Next up is CS1, which you'll want one piece of coordinating cardstock, and this will be cut into 16 pieces. For my cards today, I'm using Jalapeno cardstock from Tailored Expressions. To get started, I cut that piece into 2 columns that are 4 7/8 inches wide. And then once I have those cut down, I'm going to rotate this piece and cut 1-inch strips off the bottom until I have 8 pieces from each of those halves. With the way my trimmer is, when I get down to that small section at the bottom, there's no longer room for my fingers to hold the cardstock in place while I make the cut. So what I do is bring in some Scotch removable tape, and I'm going to have that help me hold that piece down while I make the 2 final cuts. I can use that same piece of removable tape for this entire project. So I just set it off to the side there while I worked on cutting down the second half of the Jalapeno cardstock. I would love to know what theme you're going to use for your first SheetLoad of Cards this month. Let me know down in that comment section below. Next up is CS2, which will be for your focal points, and the suggested size on these is 2 by 3 1/4 inch arched rectangles. Now don't forget, if you are a channel member, I will be telling you here in just a minute how you can download this month's bonus SVG cut file. I did use that for my focal points, so I just took a piece of white cardstock, and using my silhouette, I ended up cutting out 9 just because that's how many fit on the piece of paper, so I might have an extra left over for a future project. If you are a channel member and would like access to this SVG file, later today over on the membership tab, you'll want to look for a graphic like the one up on screen now. It will have a link to the download, and you can also check out the monthly blogs. Now, if you are not a channel member yet or do not have an electronic cutter, I do have some other ideas for you. First, you might have some dies in your stash that will work for this, like Spellbinders Essential Arches, or from Tailored Expressions, you have arch stacklets, and then they also have a fun petite scallop stacklets to go with them. Secondly, maybe you don't want to use an arched rectangle. You could try circles or maybe some ovals for your focal points instead. Another idea is just to use rectangles cut to that size, or maybe you have some corner punches. I have a couple different corner rounders here that you could round the top 2 corners, and even this third punch, it has some angled corners in different sizes. Use what you have in your stash and make these cards your own. What other ideas do you have for this piece? Let us know down in the comment section below. The final thing you'll need are 8 A2 card bases, and for these you'll just cut 4 pieces of cardstock in half and then fold it in half. I just grabbed some that I already had made here in my stash. To get started with assembly, I'm going to take the 2 pattern paper piece Bs for each card and get them adhered at an offset to their Jalapeno cardstock mat. Now look closely at the sketch. This is not a mat that goes all the way around. Instead, they are the same size, and you will put the pattern paper up and to the left about 1/8 of an inch on each of those cardstock backgrounds. I continued adhering all of those pieces together. Now, while I did just eyeball it and it worked out pretty well, you could definitely use a small piece of gridded paper or maybe take it on a trimmer where you have some 1/8 inch lines, but I would say do whatever is easiest for you. Now that all of those are adhered together, I'm going to switch up the patterns, and for the red strips, they're going to go on the mailbox background, and then the mailbox strips will go on the red background. Now, if your pattern paper has a pattern that flows like the mailbox paper does, you'll want to make sure that you go ahead and put the two coordinating pieces together with their background, just so later you don't wind up with the same pattern on both strips or one that doesn't flow nicely. On this first background, I'm going to show you how I put this together. I laid out the pieces over on the right so the pattern did flow, and then I adhered the bottom piece first. This is going to be about 1/8 of an inch up from the bottom, and then you'll center it left to right as well as possible. Then you'll do that same thing with the next piece, but you'll just move it up 1/8 of an inch from the piece that you placed before. For my set, I found that eyeballing adding these pieces worked just fine, but if you wanted to be more exact or make sure everything is nice and squared up and straight, you could always use something like a T-ruler. I continued adhering all of those pieces to their background pattern paper, and you might have just noticed that my ATG ran out in the middle of a strip, and I decided to postpone refilling that for just a minute to finish this card. So my liquid glue was right off to the side, so I used that. Make it work and then take a pause when you can. After all of the pattern paper pieces were adhered together, I added adhesive to the back and got these added to the front center of the card bases. Now it's time to get the focal points ready. I'm going to start by stamping the sentiment, which reads "Stamped with love and holiday cheer" at the bottom center of each of the arched rectangles. I will be using Jalapeno ink on the special delivery stamp set from Dare to be Artsy. Now once I have this set up once, which you see I did have to adjust it just a little bit, I am able to quickly stamp this first one and then just place that next arched rectangle and stamp the remaining sentiments onto this. I love Misties and stamp positioners for this reason. Another great feature of the Misty, which you might have noticed it on the first one that I stamped, was you can re-ink and stamp in the same exact place. Since this is a new stamp set, that first image wasn't quite crisp, so I did ink that up and stamp it twice. Eventually on these pieces, I will be adding an envelope similar to the one in the stamp set. So I got out the coordinating die, and what I'm going to do now is place that onto one of those arched rectangles, kind of how I'll want it placed when I add these later. And then I'm going to trace on the inside of the die very lightly in pencil. This way I have a good idea of what's going to be open area when that is adhered down. To add some more details and color to this piece, I'm going to be using 3 of the accessory stamps and doing some light stamping in the background. So I brought in some clear stamp blocks for free range stamping and got each of the 3 stamps added to it. Now because I will be stamping off and this foam pad soaks up ink just like a foam pad would, I brought in a scrap of recycling paper, and I'm going to use that not only to stamp off that first time, but to catch any stray ink. I'm going to start with kind of the round postmark and test that with cherry pop ink and do a little stamping at the side, and then using where that light pencil mark was, I'm going to add that to the upper left of the arched rectangle. I did that same thing with the remaining 7 pieces. Once all those had been stamped, I rotated my scrap paper so I had some clean area for the stamping off, and then I'm going to bring back in that original arched rectangle with the pencil outline. Now I'm going to be using honey ink on the little wavy lines, and these got kind of added to the bottom right above the sentiment. For the third stamp, I flipped my scrap of paper over, and I'm going to be using Jalapeno ink on the little December 25th stamp. This one gets stamped off and then put over on the right edge. I just love the extra color and detail this gives the focal points. Let me know in the comment section below if you have done stamping off or second generation stamping lately. For the main focal image, I could have definitely used the stamp set and colored each of those, but you know that's not my favorite thing to do. So instead, I am using these dies on the pattern paper. Is this not so fun how they coordinate with that? I did take this off camera to do because you have to be kind of careful cutting out in little blobs or circles the area you want to die cut, but here's a look at those finished. So quick, so adorable. I did go ahead and add some foam tape to the back for some added dimension, but before I put that onto the background, I do always like to add some liquid glue so I can get that placed just right. And on this first one, I'm going to make sure that I cover up that pencil outline that I made previously. Once all of those were in place, it was time to get them added to the card fronts. For this, you can definitely move the arched rectangle around, but I did decide to go ahead and leave it over on the left like the sketch showed. Now, if you would put this down as is, because there are 2 layers at the bottom, your top is going to kind of hang out in the air. Now, you could use foam tape if you wanted to, but what I'm going to do is just bring in a scrap of white cardstock, and I cut a small, probably 1/2 inch wide strip, and I'm going to fold that in half, glue it together, and then glue it onto the back of the arched rectangle. Now, once this piece is adhered to the card front, that is going to keep it nice and level, and it also is going to cut down on the bulk. For the rest of these, I did more of an assembly line process. I cut, folded, and glued all of the strips, added each of those to the back top of the arched rectangle, and then got all of those added to the card fronts. Earlier in this video, I did show you that there were some leftover pattern paper scraps, so off camera, I took some time to cut those down. Then these will get added to the inside of the card base, and this adds a little extra decoration and a fun surprise. Let me know in the comment section below how often you decorate the inside of your cards. And here are some close-up looks at the finished set. I hope you enjoyed seeing how I put together my first set of cards using the March 2026 sheet load and got a few tips along the way. If you did, as always, a thumbs up is appreciated. Now don't forget to go visit everybody else's cards by using the playlist linked below or the end card here in just a minute. I know they would all love for you to stop by, see what they created, and leave them some love. Until my next video, I hope you're all having a crafty day. Bye-bye. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch all the way to the end of the video. I hope now you'll consider clicking on one of the videos or playlists I have linked above. And if you are interested in any of the products or tools I used in today's video, I do have some links in the description box below.